It is true. Appearances are deceptive. Here we are, sitting well-dressed, feeling reasonably secure in our setting, rich in culture and learning, anticipating a stable world, which will allow us to minister as we've known Unitarian Universalist ministries to be. And while we talk about a good game being altruistic, caring about other people, caring about ourselves, but allow me to suggest today that we are called to ministry in a world of woe. It's an island that we live on in the United States. It's an island of tranquility in a world of woe. The future could be very decisive in defining the course of civilization for the future, for decades to come. It's like that Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. Well, our ministry indeed is in the midst of interesting times. And so we ask ourselves, who shall we help? Should we help ourselves? Do we help people in our neighborhood? Do we help people in our city, in our state, in our country, in our continent, in our world? It's gotten so complicated, we don't even know who we ought to be helping with our limited resources. For ours is a world writhing in pain, great pain. Ours is a world of travail. And in spite of all of our efforts to help people in obvious need, after decades of development, what is clear in the observation is that most of the people in the world are poor and getting poorer. 2/3 of the human family is hungry. Most are illiterate and disease-ridden. 20% of the human family controls 80% of the world's resources. And the capital needed for development in third world is being drawn into the black hole of economies of rich nations at an accelerated rate. There it fuels a cauldron of runaway wasteful consumption. We cannot ignore this. They add up to a crisis of faith for us. As Robert McAfee Brown, the great theologian and professor at Union Theological Seminary, had said, since we say we are on the side of the poor, why are we undisturbed by the fact that we are among the non-poor? Since we say we cry out for justice, why are we such complacent recipients of goods that are gotten unjustly? Since we say we yearn for peace, why are we still troubled by constant preparation for war? The pain is not new. It's an ancient curse, and yet two realities are new. The poor of the world are waking up. The poor of the earth know now that they are poor, and that they were not meant to be poor. They're oppressed, but they were born to freedom. They're in pain, but it doesn't have to be that way. Human systems are hurting them. Human systems can change and must change. They're learning now that massive political and economic systems ensure the domination of the few over many, of white people over non-white people, the landowners over the landless, the urban over the rural, the wealthy over the poor, the big over the small, the powerful over the weak. And I'm encouraged by people who study this phenomena, the world's economy. They came to the conclusion that the party's over, meaning the phrase of the Western affluence used to be built on cheap energy, cheap and foreign domestic labor, and technological development. The party was a swinging one, but most of the people who made it possible were not invited. I call that the Titanic syndrome, where people are enjoying the festivities in the plush ballroom of a great sinking ship that nobody ever thought could sink, while the holes are filling up with water and adding to the weight. We might enjoy the party for a little while, but not for long, because below deck, the people who manage the pumps and the great ship are already drowning. You see, we as Unitarian Universalists believe we know the true situation, and we conclude that it is dire. There's no question it's a world of confusion. The old ground rules are breaking up. The great power chess game, which the people of the world are pawns, a great East-West drama for global domination, are losing their power to control events or even to interpret them. There is a great network of propaganda out there by all the countries of the world, including the United States, who put up perceptual screens they always say are, communist-inspired freedom movements, which seem to threaten our short-range economic or political interests. We thought all we had to do to make the world safe for our transnational corporations in Latin America, for example, was send the CIA down there and teach people the fine art of oppression. Our paramilitary, remarkably, diabolically, are effective in putting right-wing dictatorships in power and keeping them there. In Cuba, we thought we could keep them out. We thought we could do business as usual. But now we have some real enemies. The people are rising up. Yes, while people of America are being told propaganda about our purity and our continuing desire for human rights. No doubt about it. This has become an age of martyrdom. People are dying for freedom and justice once again. Tragically, they're dying to free their people from systems American leaders have forged and continue to support in our name. I'm thinking about the great Oscar Romero, Bishop Oscar Romero in San Salvador. While he was officiating at Mass and holding up the elements, the body of Christ, the government soldiers came in and blew him away, killed him right there on the altar. And he had become the voice of the people with no voice, the incorruptible defender of the rights of the poor and of the oppressed, the untiring denouncer of injustice, the hopeful proclaimer of the kingdom of love and truth, and the faithful companion of all those who work for justice and peace. All over the world, ecclesiastical bodies of faithful people express solidarity with the cause, pledging themselves to finish his unfinished Mass. Well, when our friends hurt us, we sometimes say, with friends like these, who needs enemies? And now we can say, with enemies like these, who needs friends? Many years ago, I went to Nicaragua with Witness for Peace, a solidarity movement who supported the people of Nicaragua overthrowing the government of Somoza. He was a dictator, as you know. In 1972, they had an earthquake in Nicaragua. We raised a lot of money and assistance for the people of Nicaragua. Roberto Clemente rode an airplane to help those people and died trying to get there. Well, he kept all the money. And they were in direct conflict, these Sandinistas, with what the Contras were doing up in Honduras. All they wanted was power to get it back. They were selling drugs, they were selling guns, they were doing all kinds of things. But we were backing the Honduran Contras and not the Sandinistas because they were leftist FSLN people. And when our State Department engineered images of certain countries that they called socialists as terrorists, and when the docile press wouldn't pick up the news, are they our enemies or are they our friends? Are they not our friends if they blow whistles on self-serving policies at the cost of alienating people? Are they not our friends for reminding us that our long-range economic and political interests, even our survival, will require the support of all the world's people? And will the demand of the genuine balanced development of these same third world people, not their subjugation or exploitation, be the reality? I'm sure everyone would agree that it's a confusing picture that we live in. What a world. Remember the haunting cry. Whose side are you on, anyway? It's being heard with new urgency on a global scale. So you might be asking yourselves, where do the Unitarian Universalists enter as a helping force for the betterment of the world? Where do we plug in? Well, your role and my role is one of activism. You're called to be a prophet now, to serve the present age with faithfulness. That's not going to be easy. As Dr. McAfee Brown says, voices from the world, third world, tell us that we're on the wrong side. And then if we don't change sides, things are going to be rough in the future. That's true. But we immediately realize that if we do change sides, things are going to be rough for us in the present. For Unitarian Universalist, prophecy in a world of woe always begins with an act of national repentance. How difficult is it for us as a nation to repent of our involvement in so many wars, those we either created or are encouraging? No matter how many horrible things people have done in our name in the world, someone suggests we ought to own up to our culpability. We all stand the doorway of the establishment. We stand there with the axe in hand saying, never. Remember in Colorado, just shortly after Columbine happened, Moses, Charlton Heston, went to Colorado for the NRA's annual meeting. And he held up his rifle and said, from my dead cold hands. Well, that's something you're never going to forget. I will never forget it. How many times have I've heard people say, people of faith should stay out of foreign policy. People should stay out of politics if they are religious. Well, the only response I can give to that is to say the separation of church and state, impossible. The State Department has a huge operation analyzing mail, editorials, speeches, opinion polls from across the country, sensing what the people want and what they will tolerate. Well, too often I'm afraid they analyze what will have to be done to cover up or propagandize to convince the American people that what they don't want is good for them, or to convince them that what is being done throughout the world in their name that violates their principles is best kept from them. Non-public policies are made within the pressure cooker of contending interest groups. The lobbyists, the corporate representatives, the individual influencers. Unfortunately, the question rarely answered becomes, who lobbies for people? Who lobbies for the poor? Who lobbies for just plain folks? For the deeper, far more reaching, more intangible values that shape life at its best? Who lobbies for the value of our ancestors who dreamed of building a nation where everyone has a participation? How do we talk about a nation of righteousness unless we're willing to call this nation to account and what it did in the past? Are we false prophets? Crying peace, peace, when there's no peace? The free and prophetic pulpit right here makes this nation great, and we'll call it again and again in a world of bulwark of freedom and justice. We're involved even in our passivity, you know. Our see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil escapisms are themselves an involvement. Since we're involved anyway, we might as well struggle the best we can to inform ourselves on the state of the world, reflecting on its needs, and go deliberately into arenas where decisions are made, as is characteristic of what Unitarian Universalist people do. Repentance is the starting point for reform and renewal. That means maybe an apology. We have a lot to apologize for. I know it's hard to imagine. It might mean restitution and possibly reclamation. Above all, it prefigures metanoia, the transformation of attitudes, actions, and lifestyles. Those savvy and aware people, people of faith, know the evils that are around them. And having done everything, they know the righteousness of the phrase, I am an unprofitable servant. Unitarian Universalists are the ones who are open to leading this country and leading the world with their gentle, insistent nudging of the human spirit. Catch them up, almost subconsciously, in the creative and unknown solutions in the critical problems of the age. It's very hard to live in this world and ignore the problems of this world. I think that is an essential requisite. This openness to repentance is what helps us to escape the defensive chauvinisms of a rich people defending their own wealth, a too proud people defending their honor. These chauvinisms always threaten to engulf us. They lead us down a path we don't want to go. And we need to account for what we've done that hindered the peace and the prosperity of people in other lands. We need to look again at those people we've transgressed again with a caring and concerned heart and ask them directly, what have I done to hurt you? What do you need and how can I help you? Who needs our help? Well, the great thing in my mind about Unitarian Universalists is that they remain to this day action people, action ministry. That's why I call you the chariots of fire. And I've been a Protestant most of my life. What is that? Protestant. I've been a Protestant Protestant. And they concentrate on something called the Word. Well, for years, I thought the Word was synonymous with my words. We assume that we can pile up spiritual capital in the treasury of grace by preaching and being preached to. And later I found out how disillusioning that notion was and is. So I submit to you today, there are no substitutes for prophetic preaching. Neither is there any merit in it as an exercise in the bouncing of sound waves off of the walls of any church. You may feel good about it, and the church might be well manicured and taken care of, but the real strength is in the potential for mobilizing a community to witness, to work, and bring about shalom. The health and wholeness of a family of humanity. That's where Unitarian Universalists shine the most. Now, I'm not suggesting, however, that we do this only when the community is ready to hear and ready to move. No, we are the chariots of fire. Unitarian Universalist voices are the ones crying in the wilderness when nobody seems to hear. Now, I remember back in the day when my early steps of ministry, I used to write these papers for the church on social issues. And I was very gratified that I saw some of my work and my resolutions show up at annual conferences and general conferences as resolutions. It was so distressing to talk with some of my Quaker friends. And they would say to me, and it's really interesting, they would say, what good are your fancy resolutions? Every member of Congress knows that most of the people in their district won't read them. And if they do read them, half of them are going to be mad at you for writing it. And they're going to vote the opposite way. Those Quakers, they're onto something. I think they're onto something. But many of you know me. So you know what my response would be to that statement. And it's that I believe prophetic resolutions have the potential for power in social reform. They have the power to stretch the mind and create social reform. But only if respected leaders use resolutions to lead deeper into mind-stretching experiences. They have the power to witness to the mind of the universal church, but only if they do, in fact, register a genuine consensus and signal an intent on the part of people, or at least a remnant of the people, to struggle for their fulfillment. But prophecy in a world of woe is not only action as a ministry. It must be accompanied by a shared ministry. Prophetic words themselves become our witness and dwell among us as they are in the life of the community of faith. Now, I submit to you today that I'm convinced that all the years that I've been allowed to be on this earth, that prophetic preaching is at its best when it emerges from caring, dreaming, witnessing communities and flows back into that community to encourage it, to unify it, to empower it, and to guide it. Significant and lasting social reform emerges from communities of hope for new possibilities. The creation of those communities of solidarity or of mutual support and accountability is the way to embody the dream. What are your dreams? I would like to know. It's what so many of our brothers and sisters in this country have died for. We usually hold up instances of individual heroism as our model for social change. I'm thinking of all the people who make others aware of things like climate change and conservation of our resources. We forget the vast network of alert and caring groups of people who feel the same way as we do. And they expand our ideas and offer some promising policy referendums as they fight for the environmental reforms with us and all that the nation needs. And make no mistake about it, we are in the midst of climate change. I never saw such hot days in my life these days. Take Ralph Nader. Remember that? Remember he came and took on the corporate leaders with the Corvair? Well, he was a courageous loner, rallying at the corporate windmills on behalf of the consumer. Now he's 89 years old. And his effectiveness depended upon his ability to draw together research specialists and organize them into teams of social reform. Or take Thomas Edison. I used to think that Thomas Edison made up all that stuff himself, that he invented everything just, out of his head. Well, he didn't do that. Only recently did I come to realize his genius was in large part the capacity to attract, organize, and lead a whole bunch of other scientists and inventors full of gifted people, each with unique abilities in specialized fields. Now, make no mistake about it, and do not believe the illusion that if you speak truth to power in this world we live. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about with this one. The hard truth and conflict of our corporate and government leaders must care if we're to survive as a nation. Make no mistake about it, you're going to be reviled and you're going to be attacked. If you do stand alone, you're going to be labeled, ridiculed, and rendered powerless. And don't suppose that your ability to offer a prophetic witness will give you the corner on the market for prophecy. There's a new kind of human spirit that creates a new kind of corporate life. The unity of the human spirit is a new community now, empowered to preach prophetic words. For prophecy is a function of spirituality, not the office of compartmentalization. Everyone can be spiritually prophetic, which offers hope in this world of pain and suffering. Think about how the world is suffering. Think about how people are starving. Think about how some people in the world, through no fault of their own, have nothing compared to what we have. Now, I must say, all that sounds very good until you hear the price you have to pay for being such a prophetic witness. Many times, the Unitarian Universalist Church would deliver messages of restraint, of peace, of understanding. They did not go as foreign policy experts. They didn't go as diplomats. They went with the message which is simple and yet profound, that in this world, individuals and governments and people can live together in the spirit of reconciliation. Do you believe that? I sure hope so with all my heart. For reconciliation is not a quick fix on the 6 o'clock news. Reconciliation is not a flaming headline in the newspapers where we solve the problems of the world. Reconciliation is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the short-winded. It's not for those who will not walk the extra mile. Now, I submit this is the most difficult kind of witness in all the world. To be a reconciler, you're not going to be loved. You will be reviled, perhaps by some. You'll be embraced by others. But in your own way, quietly, compassionately, lovingly, and with dignity, you will take those further steps towards peace and reconciliation in the world. And you know who I'm talking about. Isn't it interesting? You're probably observing that I haven't mentioned one thing critical of any other source. Not one. Don't mention them. You're not supposed to do that. Well, I didn't do that. But you know who I'm talking about. I know you do. I know you do. So when you speak truth to power with firm and clear resolve, you're identifying people who need our help. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter what their political correctness is. If they are oppressed and suffering, so are we. A threat to justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And I know you've heard that. If prophecy in a confused world is an action ministry, and if it is a shared ministry, then prophecy in a world of woe must also declare a message of hope. Our hope does not lie in the success of political reforms, of technological innovation, of economic development, or even the armament program. No, our faith constrains us to struggle for a way out of madness. Whatever skills we can offer to the common effort to make life on earth worth living, that's the people we need to help, pure and simple. And I'm personally thrilled by technological breakthroughs which promise to give a suffering humanity respite from life-threatening casualties. I read absolutely anything I can find on energy research and keep asking religious leaders, what are we doing to lead our churches, our synagogues, our mosques, and all people in energy-saving innovation? I'm just one person. And reluctantly, I have to admit, I drive an electric car. There's a downside to that, just so you know. I keep my thermostat down. I turn the lights off when I'm not in a room. I dream of a completely green community that I might live and save the world with conservation. But all the time I know that the final hope for all of humanity doesn't rest on optimism about human engineering efforts. Our collective hope lies in the redemptive intent of the people who have suffered and can make a contribution to the betterment of everyone in all the world. Now the question begs to be asked. Why are you called, you may ask? Because we are witnesses to powerful, indestructible forces for the human redemption of the world. This hope is what frees us more than any other hope that I know of, to look beyond conventional wisdom and stand against it if necessary, to preach peace and justice in a world where structural violence is massive and systems of exploitation so vast and so powerful as defy understanding, let alone reform. And I could say unequivocally without reservation that for you and for me, this is what gives us joy in the midst of struggle. Long before I ever met you, you were doing the work, talking the talk, and walking the walk. And so I have no reservations when people ask me what our Unitarian Universalist Church of Tampa is all about. I simply tell people, in this place, you are the chariots of fire. You are the prophets in a world of woe. When you hear these labels about yourselves, you've earned the right to wear those labels as a statement of honor and a badge of courage. This is a faith community, helping people no matter who they are, no matter what their definition is. And to such freedom and bravery, I thank you.